The universe had known peace for eons. The galactic councils, made up of countless species, had long governed with a system of checks and balances, and none had dared to challenge the status quo. Among the thousands of planets and systems, Earth was but a distant, insignificant speck. Humanity, once known for its wars and division, had slowly faded from galactic affairs, content to exist on the fringes of the universe, clinging to their homeworld, a planet rich with history but void of significant influence. But something had changed. A crisis, vast and destructive, had swept through the galaxy. The Seraphim, an ancient, powerful race of beings who had controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes and communications, had fallen into a mysterious decline. Some said they had reached the end of their lifespan as a species. Others believed they were being targeted by a malevolent force, but no one knew for sure. What was clear, however, was that their sudden collapse left a vacuum in galactic leadership. Across the galaxy, chaos reigned. Smaller factions fought for power, and trade routes were disrupted. Planets that had once been peaceful found themselves on the brink of war, their alliances shattered in the wake of the Seraphim's fall. At the edge of the galaxy, Earth stood quiet, oblivious to the cosmic storm unfolding. Humanity had no desire to intervene. They had made their peace, living in harmony on their homeworld. But fate has a way of knocking on the door when least expected. It began with a transmission, a strange, cryptic signal, pulsing through the deep void. It wasn't from any known species. It wasn't even a language. Just a hum, a rhythmic pulse that felt alive. It reached Earth's most advanced deep space relay stations, sparking curiosity among a small group of researchers. Dr. Eleanor Hayes, a brilliant astrobiologist, was one of those researchers. She had dedicated her life to studying the vast expanse of space, but even she was unprepared for what happened next. The signal began to change, becoming more structured over time, until, one fateful day, it came to life, a single word, repeated in every known language across the galaxy: humanity. The world's leaders were baffled. Was this a warning? A plea for help? Or, perhaps, an invitation? Dr. Hayes was one of the few who believed it was something more, a summons. There was something in the frequency of the signal that resonated with her on a deep, instinctual level. She felt, without a doubt, that it was Earth's time to rise. The signal felt like a call to action. Months passed, and debates raged across the globe. Some factions believed they should ignore the signal, wary of any outside interference. Others argued that humanity had earned its right to step into the galactic stage, particularly after years of isolation. A select few, like Dr. Hayes, knew the truth: humanity's destiny was no longer to remain on the sidelines. Earth would be the one to lead, to unite the galaxy. The United Nations, after heated discussions and secret meetings with experts in every field, decided to act. A new coalition was formed, a multidisciplinary task force designed to investigate the origins of the signal and what it meant for humanity's future. But this was not just a scientific endeavor, it was a political and military operation. The world's brightest minds, soldiers, diplomats, and leaders were united in a single cause: to prepare humanity to take its place as the galaxy's new leaders. As the task force began assembling, Dr. Hayes was chosen to lead the first mission. Alongside a diverse crew of scientists, strategists, and engineers, she would embark on an unprecedented journey to decipher the signal's origins, uncover its meaning, and, most importantly, determine if humanity had the power to claim the mantle of leadership. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the smaller factions and warring civilizations watched with growing concern. No one had expected humanity to rise so quickly. They had underestimated the Earthlings, assuming they were no more than a quaint species on a lonely planet. Now, however, humanity's sudden surge to prominence was starting to disrupt the delicate balance of galactic power. The message had been clear to the galaxy: Earth was not just participating in the future of the universe, they were going to shape it. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy's spotlight shifted, and all eyes were on Earth. The task force's first mission was to uncover the true source of the mysterious signal. Earth's finest minds and most skilled professionals were gathered, and they were ready to confront the unknown. The expedition was led by Dr. Eleanor Hayes, the same astrobiologist who had first felt the signal's call. She was joined by Admiral Samuel Klein, a seasoned military officer whose calm demeanor and tactical genius had earned him the respect of every nation. Together, they would form the backbone of humanity's first intergalactic venture. Their destination was a distant star system, located in a sector of space previously unexplored by humans. For weeks, the crew of the Astra Nova, Earth's first flagship designed for deep space exploration, traveled toward the coordinates the signal had given them. As they neared the system, Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein sat together in the ship's command center, looking at the data that had begun to flood in. The signal was stronger now, its rhythm clearer, almost like a heartbeat. "This is it," Dr. Hayes said softly, her eyes scanning the holographic display. "We're close." Admiral Klein leaned over her shoulder. "Let's make sure we're not walking into a trap. I don't want to find ourselves in the middle of a war we didn't sign up for." Dr. Hayes nodded. The galaxy was unstable, and many factions, especially the more aggressive ones, viewed humanity as a new threat, an unknown factor that could tip the balance in their favor. But they were too late, the humans had already set their course. Upon arrival, they found the star system to be eerily quiet. There were no signs of other ships, no military presence, no activity. The planets, though habitable, appeared desolate. Abandoned cities lay scattered across the surface, untouched for millennia. A dark, hollow silence permeated everything, and a deep unease settled over the crew. They found a large moon orbiting the fourth planet, a massive, ancient structure embedded within the moon's surface. It was something that defied explanation. Its architecture was nothing like any known species had ever built, alien, monolithic, but undeniably advanced. The signal was originating from within it. Dr. Hayes and her team suited up, preparing to land on the moon's surface. As they made their way toward the structure, the ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. The moon was no longer just a lifeless satellite, it was alive. Something deep within its core was still active, powered by an energy source that could not be explained by any current human technology. The crew descended into the structure, navigating long, winding corridors of ancient metal and stone. It wasn't long before they came across strange, shimmering panels, holographic interfaces that flickered to life as they passed. They were being observed, but by whom? And why? Dr. Hayes felt an overwhelming sense of urgency as they ventured deeper. She couldn't explain it, but something was calling to her. The further they went, the more the signal seemed to grow stronger, resonating within her mind as though it were part of her very DNA. It was like an invitation, a test, or perhaps both. Finally, they reached the heart of the structure, a massive chamber with an enormous, glowing crystalline object at its center. The energy radiating from it was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It pulsed with light and power, and as the crew approached, the signal became a deafening crescendo. And then, it happened. A holographic figure appeared before them, tall, regal, and impossibly beautiful. It was the figure of a being unlike any species known to the galaxy. The figure's eyes shimmered with ancient knowledge, and its voice, though soft, rang clear and commanding in the minds of every human present. "Humanity," the figure spoke, the word carrying with it an immense weight. "You have been chosen." The words echoed in the chamber as every crew member looked at one another, stunned into silence. The holographic figure continued, its presence filling the room. "The time has come for you to take your place among the stars. The galaxy needs new leadership. The seraphim have faltered, and all those who once held power have lost their way. You, humanity, are the key to uniting the galaxy. You must rise, or the darkness will consume all." A shiver ran down Dr. Hayes' spine. "But why us?" she asked, her voice steady, though she could hardly believe the enormity of what she was hearing. "Because you are unique," the figure replied. "You are the only species who has the will to change the galaxy. Your capacity for growth, for adaptation, for unity in diversity, is unparalleled. You will bring balance, where others have only brought conflict." The crew stood in awe, the magnitude of the situation settling over them. The galaxy was waiting for humanity to take charge. But would they be able to lead? Could they unite the fractured civilizations? And, most pressing of all, who or what had chosen them, and why? As the holographic figure faded, the crew stood in stunned silence, each of them grappling with the enormity of the mission ahead. Humanity's role in the galaxy had been defined in that moment, and nothing would ever be the same again. The message had been received, and the galaxy was watching. As the Astra Nova made its return journey to Earth, Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein sat in the command center, reflecting on what they had learned. The revelation was both exhilarating and terrifying. Humanity was now entrusted with the mantle of leadership in a galaxy on the brink of chaos. But as the enormity of the responsibility weighed on them, the question remained, were they truly ready? Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The world was in shock. Governments, scientists, military leaders, and citizens alike grappled with the implications of the message. The Seraphim, the ancient race once revered as the ultimate rulers of the galaxy, were no longer in control. And now, Earth was being asked to step into that role. The weight of expectation was overwhelming, but the world began to unite behind the cause. Dr. Hayes was thrust into the spotlight. She became the face of humanity's new mission, not just as a scientist, but as a symbol of Earth's potential. Every day, she was bombarded with questions from the media, the governments, and the public. The pressure was mounting, but she knew that the fate of the galaxy rested in her hands. Meanwhile, Admiral Klein had been given the responsibility of forming a new military coalition, a unified force that would serve as humanity's shield as they navigated their new place in the galaxy. He knew that peace could not be achieved without strength, and that there were factions who would resist humanity's rise. It was only a matter of time before they would be tested. Earth's first step was to send emissaries to the galaxy's council, a coalition of representatives from the most powerful species. The Seraphim's fall had left a power vacuum, and now others were seeking to fill it. The Astra Nova was repurposed for diplomacy, its crew now tasked with forging alliances and securing Earth's position. The first delegation was a tense affair. Dr. Hayes, now Earth's ambassador, stood before the council, a vast chamber of representatives from a dozen species, each more intimidating than the last. The Athras, towering beings with elongated features, their skin like polished marble; the Chovar, a race of insectoid diplomats, their antennae twitching with constant motion; and the Talrith, a mysterious species known for their psychic abilities. At the center of the room was the seat of the Seraphim, a symbol of power that had once been occupied by their leaders. Now, it stood empty, a silent testament to their fall from grace. Dr. Hayes, though nervous, stepped forward, her gaze unwavering as she addressed the council. Honored representatives of the galaxy, she began, her voice steady and confident. Humanity stands before you not as conquerors, but as stewards of a new era. We do not seek to dominate, but to lead. We offer unity, a vision of cooperation, and a future where all races can thrive together. There was a long silence as the representatives exchanged glances, some skeptical, others curious. Finally, a voice from the back of the room broke the silence. "Unity," said the Talrith representative, their voice soft but laden with power. "A noble ideal. But one that has failed time and again. What makes humanity believe it can succeed where others have failed?" Dr. Hayes' heart raced, but she held her ground. "Because we are different. Humanity has a unique ability to come together in times of crisis. We've seen it in our history, our darkest hours have brought out our greatest strengths. We will lead through collaboration, not subjugation." Her words were met with a ripple of murmurs. Some of the council members were visibly moved, but others remained unconvinced. The Chovar representative raised their many arms, a sign of impatience. "You speak of cooperation, but can humanity truly unite the fractured factions of the galaxy? Can you control the chaos that has long reigned?" the Chovar asked. Admiral Klein, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "We will unite those who are willing. As for those who would stand in our way, we will defend humanity's right to lead. The galaxy may be fractured, but we will forge the path forward with strength and resolve. The tension in the room was palpable. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, and humanity's role was still uncertain. But Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein knew that they had taken the first step. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was no longer a passive observer, they were a force to be reckoned with. As the meeting adjourned, the delegates dispersed, but the air remained thick with uncertainty. The council was far from unanimous in their approval, but humanity had made an undeniable mark. The seeds of change had been planted. Back on Earth, the message was clear. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be those who would resist, who would challenge humanity's rise, but there were also those who would stand with them. Earth's place in the galaxy had been solidified, and now, the true test was about to begin. Would humanity be able to unite the fractured factions of the galaxy? Would they have the strength to face the challenges ahead, both from within and beyond? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain, humanity had awakened. And the galaxy would never be the same. It didn't take long for the galaxy to test humanity's resolve. Just weeks after Earth's first diplomatic mission to the Council, a crisis unfolded that would define humanity's ability to lead. A splinter faction, the Zothari, known for their brutal militarism and unpredictable nature, had launched an attack on a peaceful, neutral system on the outer rim of the galaxy. They had conquered the system's central planet, devastated its cities, and captured its population. The peaceful world had been allied with the Seraphim before their fall, and its leaders had been in talks with the newly formed human coalition. The Zothari saw this as an opportunity to strike, hoping to destabilize humanity's newfound influence before it could take root. The council was in turmoil. Many of the representatives were reluctant to intervene in the conflict, preferring to avoid any direct confrontation with the Zothari. To them, the chaos was simply another symptom of the galaxy's fractured state. But humanity, under Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein's leadership, could not allow this aggression to stand. The peaceful system's inhabitants had already paid too heavy a price, and Earth's commitment to unity and order meant that no one would be left behind. Admiral Klein was the first to speak. We cannot allow this attack to go unchecked. The Zothari must be stopped before their aggression spreads. The galaxy needs to see that humanity is prepared to act decisively when innocent lives are at stake. Dr. Hayes, though deeply disturbed by the violence, knew that the path to leadership was fraught with difficult choices. We will not become what we despise, she said, her voice steady. We will intervene, but we will do so with restraint. Our strength must be tempered by compassion. The galaxy will judge us not just by our power, but by our principles. In a rare moment of unity, the Council agreed to allow humanity to lead a coalition to liberate the captured planet. The operation would be humanity's first military engagement on a galactic scale, and it would determine whether Earth could maintain its vision of peace while defending those in need. The Astra Nova was quickly retrofitted for combat, and a fleet of ships from various allied species joined the effort. Despite the tensions, this marked humanity's first true test of leadership. How would they balance the need for military action with their ideals of unity and compassion? The battle that followed was swift but brutal. The Zothari had fortified the planet and deployed vast numbers of soldiers, but they were unprepared for the tactical brilliance of Admiral Klein and the combined forces of the human fleet. Humanity's military strategy, though newly formed, was unlike any the galaxy had seen. They focused on precision strikes, disabling Zothari ships without unnecessary bloodshed, while special forces infiltrated the planet to liberate its citizens. Despite the overwhelming odds, the human forces prevailed. The Zothari were forced to retreat, and the captured planet was freed. The people, though shaken by the invasion, were grateful. As the human forces landed, they were met with cheers from the liberated citizens, many of whom had been longtime allies of the Seraphim and now looked to humanity as their new beacon of hope. But the victory came at a cost. The Zothari, though beaten, were not eliminated. The galaxy's largest warlord faction was still out there, and the threat of retaliation was looming. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Dr. Hayes addressed the people in a broadcast to the galaxy. This victory is not ours alone. It is a victory for all who believe in peace, unity, and the rule of law. We will continue to fight for the freedom of every innocent being in the galaxy. Humanity will stand as a protector, not as a conqueror. We will not allow aggression to go unanswered, but we will always seek a path to peace. Her words resonated across the galaxy. While the Zothari still loomed as a threat, humanity's role in galactic leadership had been solidified. The Council, once divided and hesitant, now saw Earth as a force for stability, a beacon of hope for the galaxy's fractured civilizations. But as the celebration subsided, there were murmurs of dissent. The Zothari were just the first challenge in a long line of enemies that would test humanity's resolve. And though many had rallied behind the cause, there were still those who viewed humanity's rise with suspicion and fear. The war was far from over. But humanity had passed its first test, proving that they could balance their ideals with the harsh reality of galactic politics. The victory over the Zothari was celebrated across Earth and its newfound allies, but a sense of unease lingered in the air. Humanity had proven its military might and diplomatic resolve, but it was becoming clear that the road ahead would be anything but smooth. The galaxy had witnessed Earth's rise, and with that attention came both admiration and fear. While many of the galaxy's species saw humanity as a new hope, there were those who remained wary of Earth's sudden ascent. The struggle for control of galactic power was far from over, and the shadow of the Seraphim's ancient empire loomed large. They had once been the unquestioned rulers, their reach stretching across vast territories. And now, without their leadership, there was an unsettling vacuum, one that many feared would be filled by the wrong hands. Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein had learned that their diplomatic work was just as crucial as their military actions. The recent victory had opened doors, but it had also drawn the attention of a more mysterious faction, the Sylvans. A race shrouded in secrecy, the Sylvans were known for their intelligence networks, their ability to gather information from every corner of the galaxy. Few had ever seen a Sylvan in person, and even fewer knew their true intentions. The Sylvans operated from the shadows, preferring to manipulate events from behind the scenes rather than engage in direct conflict. One evening, while Dr. Hayes was reviewing the latest diplomatic reports in her office aboard the Astra Nova, she received an unexpected communication, an encrypted transmission from an unknown source. As she decoded the message, a chill ran down her spine. The message was simple, but it was enough to send a wave of dread through her. Your rise has not gone unnoticed. You are walking in the footsteps of the Seraphim. We will be watching. The message was unsigned, but its implications were clear. The Sylvans had been watching humanity's every move. And now, they were making their presence known. Admiral Klein was immediately brought into the conversation. The Sylvans, he said with a grim expression. They've always been more of a rumor than a real threat, but if they're involved, things just became more complicated. Dr. Hayes couldn't help but feel the weight of their warning. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, but the path to leadership was fraught with dangers both seen and unseen. The Sylvans were experts in subterfuge, and their motives were unclear. Could they be allies, seeking to guide humanity in the right direction? Or were they plotting something darker, hoping to manipulate humanity for their own ends? As the days passed, a series of strange occurrences began to unfold. Key leaders from different species started receiving anonymous messages, urging them to turn against humanity. A mysterious fleet of ships, unmarked and cloaked in secrecy, was spotted on the edge of human-controlled space. It was unclear whether these were Sylvan vessels, but the message was unmistakable: someone was trying to sow discord. And then came the greatest shock. A high-ranking member of Earth's coalition, someone close to Dr. Hayes, was assassinated under suspicious circumstances. The assassination sent ripples of doubt through the human government. Was this the work of the Zothari, seeking revenge for their defeat? Or was it a deeper conspiracy, orchestrated from the shadows? The galaxy, once united in its cautious optimism toward humanity, was now on the verge of fracturing again. The Sylvans, it seemed, had manipulated events from afar, playing factions against each other while humanity remained unaware of their machinations. The assassination had shaken Earth's confidence, but it also served as a wake-up call, there were forces in the galaxy that didn't want humanity to succeed. Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein knew that they could no longer remain passive. They had to uncover the truth, and they had to do so quickly. With the Sylvans operating from the shadows, humanity was at a crossroads. They had proven they could win battles, but now they would have to fight a different kind of war, a war of wits, a war against unseen enemies. The first step was to get to the heart of the conspiracy. Dr. Hayes began reaching out to trusted allies within the Galactic Council, warning them of the potential threat and urging them to be vigilant. Admiral Klein, meanwhile, took a more direct approach, deploying covert teams to gather intelligence on the Sylvans' movements. The hunt for the truth began, but it was clear that this would not be an easy task. The Sylvans had woven a web of deception so intricate that even their enemies couldn't tell where the strands began or ended. The more Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein dug, the more they realized that the galaxy was not as unified as it appeared. Political intrigue, backroom deals, and hidden agendas threatened to undermine humanity's efforts to bring peace and order. As they continued their investigation, Dr. Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was being drawn into something far larger than they had anticipated. The Seraphim's fall was only the beginning. The true struggle for control of the galaxy was just starting, and humanity was now at the center of it all. The assassination had shaken the fragile alliances humanity had built, and the cracks were beginning to show. The Galactic Council, once cautiously supportive, was now filled with whispers of doubt. Who was truly behind the attack? Was humanity's rise as peaceful as they claimed, or was Earth simply another empire in the making? The Sylvans had done their work well, sowing distrust without ever revealing themselves. Dr. Hayes sat in the command chamber aboard the Astra Nova, reviewing intercepted communications and intelligence reports. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to take shape, but the full picture remained elusive. Every lead seemed to loop back into itself, and every faction had something to gain from destabilizing Earth's position. It was becoming clear. Someone wanted humanity to fail before it had truly taken its place in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Admiral Klein had deployed his best operatives to track down the mysterious fleet that had been seen lingering at the edges of human space. Their mission was simple: find out who was backing this shadow war and, if necessary, eliminate the threat before it could strike again. It didn't take long for them to find their first clue. A secretive meeting was scheduled on a distant moon, one that had long been a neutral ground for backroom deals and under-the-table alliances. Intelligence reports suggested that a high-ranking representative of the Sylvans would be there, along with several warlords and politicians known for their opposition to humanity. Admiral Klein took no chances. He personally led a small strike team, infiltrating the moon's underground meeting chambers. The plan was not to start a war, but to listen, to gather evidence that could expose the conspiracy for all to see. Humanity didn't need more enemies. What they needed was the truth. As Klein and his team moved through the darkened corridors, they activated their stealth systems, their advanced suits rendering them nearly invisible. Inside the chamber, a meeting was already underway. Through the high-tech audio feeds, they listened in on the voices of their enemies. Humanity cannot be allowed to consolidate power, a reptilian warlord hissed. They have already defeated the Zothari, and now the Council bends to their will. The Seraphim ruled for thousands of years, and look where that led us. We must strike before it is too late. Another voice, smoother and colder, replied. Patience. War is not the only weapon. The seeds of doubt have already been planted. Soon, the Council itself will turn against them. Humanity is a flame, bright, yes, but easily extinguished in the right conditions. Klein's jaw tightened. The Sylvans. They were orchestrating everything from the shadows. Before his team could gather more intel, a secondary transmission came through on his private comms, a warning from Earth. Dr. Hayes' voice was urgent. Klein, get out now. We've intercepted a counter-operation. Someone tipped them off. They know you're there. Too late. The meeting chamber erupted into chaos as security forces swarmed in, weapons drawn. Klein's team fought their way out, but it was a desperate retreat. Plasma fire tore through the tunnels, and explosions rocked the underground network. By the time they reached their extraction point, half of Klein's operatives were wounded, and they had lost their chance at capturing a high-value target. As the Astra Nova retrieved the survivors, Klein clenched his fists. The Sylvans had slipped away, as they always did. But now, humanity knew the truth. The war wasn't just coming, it had already begun. Back on Earth, Dr. Hayes prepared her next move. The assassination, the sabotage, the misinformation, it all pointed to one thing. Someone feared what humanity could become. And if they feared it, then that meant Earth had a chance to truly reshape the galaxy. But first, they would have to survive. The galaxy was on the brink of all-out chaos. The Sylvans' web of deception had spread too far, entangling even the most powerful factions, and humanity had found itself at the center of an escalating storm. The assassination, the failed mission on the moon, and the growing unrest in the Council, it was clear that a new war had begun, one not defined by borders, but by manipulation, secrets, and the bitter fight for control. Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein stood together in the war room of the Astra Nova, overlooking maps and projections of galactic conflicts. The entire human fleet was now mobilized, not just for defense, but for a war of liberation. The threat was no longer just the Sylvans or the fractured factions, they were facing an alliance of shadowy enemies, many of whom had been lurking in the background for centuries, waiting for the Seraphim to fall. Humanity's rise was a beacon, a threat to their plans, and they would do anything to snuff it out. "We can't let them get away with this," Klein muttered, his fingers tapping the holographic table in frustration. "We've been playing defense for too long. It's time we strike." Dr. Hayes glanced at the map. The Sylvans' influence had spread into nearly every corner of galactic politics, and their manipulation was evident even in the most powerful systems. The entire galaxy was teetering on the edge of war, one false move, and the fragile peace humanity had fought for could disintegrate. But she wasn't ready to back down. They had already lost too much, and now it was time to take control of their own destiny. "We won't just strike at the Sylvans," she said quietly. "We'll expose their lies. If we can prove to the Council and the galaxy that they've been pulling the strings behind this conflict, they'll lose their grip. The people will turn on them." But there was a deeper realization creeping into her mind: humanity was no longer just fighting for their place in the galaxy. They were fighting for the soul of the galaxy itself. The Sylvans had proven they could manipulate the galaxy from the shadows. Now, humanity would shine a light into those shadows. They would expose the conspiracy, lay bare the truth, and challenge the galaxy to choose between the past and the future. Admiral Klein knew what had to be done. The Astra Nova's fleet was ready. They would lead a full-scale assault on the heart of the Sylvans' operations, their hidden base of power, located deep within a neutral zone, a place where no faction dared to venture. But Klein knew that this would be the most dangerous mission yet. If they failed, it wouldn't just be the end of humanity's rise, it could signal the end of the entire galaxy's hope for peace. As the fleet mobilized, Dr. Hayes addressed the crew of the Astra Nova via a broadcast. "Today, we do more than fight for our survival. We fight for every species that believes in unity, in peace, in a future where we are all equal. The Sylvans' time of manipulation is over. Today, we take a stand." The battle was fierce. The Sylvans were prepared, their defenses advanced beyond anything humanity had encountered before. The fleet plunged into the heart of their stronghold, clashing with the covert forces that had controlled galactic affairs for so long. The battle raged across multiple fronts: space battles, ground assaults, and intelligence warfare. It was everything humanity had learned, everything they had worked for, all leading to this single, decisive moment. As the final wave of attacks hit the heart of the Sylvan stronghold, the galaxy watched. The Astra Nova's team infiltrated the Central Command Center, where the truth was finally revealed to the galaxy in real time, a massive broadcast across the Council channels, showing the Sylvan centuries of manipulation, the conspiracies, the wars they had sparked, and the control they had exerted over the galaxy's factions. Dr. Hayes stood before the galaxy's council, flanked by Admiral Klein and the victorious fleet. "This," she said, her voice steady and strong, is the beginning of a new era. The Sylvans sought to control us, to divide us, and to keep us in the dark. But today, we stand united. Not just as humans, but as a beacon for the galaxy's future. We will lead with transparency, with strength, and with the belief that together, we can build a galaxy where peace is not a dream, but a reality. The council chambers fell silent as the weight of her words settled on everyone. The galaxy was shaken, the truth now out in the open. There was no turning back. Some would resist, others would rally, but one thing was undeniable: humanity had taken its place, not just as leaders, but as the spark that would ignite a new age. As the Astra Nova sailed back into orbit, victorious and scarred, Dr. Hayes and Admiral Klein shared a quiet moment on the observation deck, watching the stars. "We did it," Klein said, his voice a mix of relief and resolve. Dr. Hayes nodded, her gaze fixed on the endless expanse before them. "No, Klein. We've just begun. The galaxy's future is ours to shape." And as the Astra Nova glided through the stars, the future of the galaxy was no longer uncertain. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, not just through their strength, but through their ideals, their will to fight for a better tomorrow. The new age of galactic leadership had arrived. And it was humanity's time to lead.